Today's video is sponsored by myself and my webshop hsMVY.shop. Please go check it out. The new website is now live and we're constantly adding new products to get you a better shopping experience and the best possible tools and materials for your hobby needs. In episode 1 of this build, which is quite a while ago, I finished off the paint work for that stage of the build, then set that aside to cure for a couple of days, moved on to the interior, finished that off a little while later, and then you've probably forgotten about this build entirely, and then about 6 months later I decided to finally finish this one. In the meantime, I've of course done some other things to various other builds and projects on the channel which needed more attention at that point in time, so I'm sorry for the long wait, but I'm finally glad to call this one finished, and in this final episode I will take you through all the steps that I went through to do the final touches, detailing, and finishing off on this build. Now, although I'm really happy with the way that the color came out, and I'm a really big fan of the color on this car, it is still pretty bright, and that needs to be toned down just a little bit. Now, I'm pretty sure in that first episode I did mention that I had some plans to do that, and I asked you guys what you would like to see, and the final results of that are some exterior carbon fiber bits. Now, those bits are the roof, the side skirts, the front and rear diffuser and splitter, and those are all going to be finished in carbon fiber from Scale Motorsport. Now, there was still a bit of a debate whether I would go for a full gloss carbon fiber, a flat carbon fiber, or maybe even a satin carbon fiber. And in the end, since a lot of my builds already have some gloss carbon fiber, I decided to change things up a little bit and go with a semi-gloss. That leans a bit more towards the flat than the gloss, but nevertheless, supposedly this is a semi-gloss clear, if I have to believe what the bottle says. After I finished applying all of the carbon fiber decals and shaping them to the parts, I then carefully masked around all of the areas that still needed to remain the glossy exterior color or another glossy color, and applied a couple of light coats of this semi-gloss clear. Now, the first coat was applied really lightly just to get the carbon fiber decals to get used to the clear coat itself and avoid most problems. That was set aside to cure for about 10 to 15 minutes. Then I applied a second heavier coat just to smoothen it out a bit, removed a bit of lint in between, and again let it sit for another 5 to 10 minutes. And then moved on to the final coat, which was a little bit heavier just to smoothen it out as best as possible and get the nicest, smoothest finish, as these flat or semi-gloss clear coats cannot be polished or sanded afterwards. The off-the-gun finish is what you're left with. Now, funny thing is, when you apply it, it looks really glossy, and once it starts to dry, it actually turns to a either flat or semi-gloss finish. With all of the masking tape now removed, I set the body aside to cure and then moved on to some other bits and bobs that needed some final attention and painting. First off, I started with some of the chassis components, primed them with some nFOUW primer, which is now available in the hsMVY webshop, along with a lot of other nFOUW colors that I'm testing right here to see if this is actually good stuff, which it turns out to be. And if you guys would like to buy it, of course, it is available in my webshop, thescalemodelingchannel.com, or hsMVY.shop for short. Now, all of the paints do need thinning. There is some thinners available for this paint, which works really well and pretty much doubles the amount of paint you have, which does make it a pretty fair deal, to be honest. I, however, am not exactly sure how much thinners to paint ratio there is or needs to be used. I simply just start adding thinners and testing the paint and stop adding thinners once I'm happy with the way the paint flows. Now, usually I like to go with a sort of milky consistency, that it drops off of a pipette really easily but isn't just thin as water, just a little bit thicker, and that way it usually flows out really nicely through the airbrushes that I use, and that is a general rule of thumb that works really well for me. So pretty much all of the final parts have now been painted in the colors that they need to be. Some, however, do need a bit more attention with some 2K clear to get them nice and glossy. Now for the mirrors, I added some carbon fiber to those as well. That does need to remain that semi-gloss finish, so the carbon fiber area was then masked off, and the rest of the foot or arm for the mirror was then exposed and clear coated with a nice gloss clear. Same for the wheel, that was earlier painted silver. That then was clear coated to protect the silver. I let that sit for a couple of weeks, and then after that was fully cured, I painted all the insides of the spokes in a flat black, and then did the diamond cut technique, just using some lacquer thinners on a cotton swab, removing all the highest points to leave those in the exposed silver paint, thus creating a sort of diamond cut effect which you see on a lot of wheels, making it a lot more of a detailed wheel and overall look a lot better in my opinion with the specific designs that Hobby Design used on these wheels. Now there are 2 sets of wheels included in this kit, and usually I would be pretty sure which one I'd like, but in this case I like both of the designs really well, so instead of choosing one I decided to go with both of the wheel sets, just putting them on opposite sides. So if you're looking at one side you have one wheel, and when you turn the model around you have the other wheel. As you can't see the same side or both sides of the car at the same side, you have the best of both worlds pretty much. With that being said, it is pretty much time to move on to the final assembly. All the parts have been painted and detailed, so they simply just need to be put together. After cleaning up some of the Panelline accent color, all of the excess material, and moving on to applying the final decals on the center caps of the wheels, this one can finally be called finished. Sorry it took so long to do. I had a ton of stuff on my mind in my private life, also work life, and of course on the YouTube side of things as well. Luckily, this one is now finished and we can move on to some other stuff. I do still have a various amount of projects that need to be finished, but those will come up very shortly on the channel, and then I can move on to some other content too. I hope you guys still enjoyed this series, and I will see you in the next one.